Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Poland Daily Travel. We're in the River Museum here on the edge of Tomasław Mazowiecki. This is the River Museum for the Pilica River. It's a unique installment, and it's about all things related to the River Pilica, which we're looking at today, and some of the towns and villages along it as it flows from the Jura Mountains. We're about half its distance along. It flows into the Vistula just beyond Warka, the small town of Warka. So in this particular museum, you can see behind me, there's a mill. So you can see an actual working mill, because this is very important, of course. The water mills, how else are you going to make grain if you don't have a water mill? So there's a great tradition of that. And the Pilica, of course, is one of the main rivers of Poland. It's not a big river, but it flows fairly well, fairly rapidly, and it's always got a lot of water in it, even in summer, which makes it very popular for kayaking. I think that you can kayak for about 200 kilometers or so from Szczekocina, which is on the edge, right on the edge of the Holy Cross Mountains and Silesia. And you can go all the way to the Vistula, to the mouth of Vistula. Here in this museum, you can see a lot of different things. You've got a lot of, well, for example, this boat that's behind me right here is an example of a working boat. It's over 100 years old. It was sunk into the river. It was rescued sometime in the early 1990s and put here on display. And one of the few examples of an old working boat from an old working riverboat from Poland. And it's quite a big boat. You wouldn't think it would fit so well on the smaller river, but it was used. Over here we have a pagoda, which was built out in a series of them, which were built for the you can say the poorest children to come here and enjoy the river. And it's very interesting to go inside there and see some of the old wooden boats and things like that, and how they made them. Because of course, iron boats like this were very rare, but the wooden boats, lots of them. And then there are lots of other things. There's vehicles from World War II, because the Germans were very heavily invested in this area, so there were a lot of German motorized vehicles and armaments. And also there's some, there's a boat that's used for bridging, that is putting pontoons out, and there's a couple of pontoons that they would have used for crossing the rivers during World War II, for example. So there are a lot of things to see. And even this right here is part of an iron bridge that was built over the River Pilica, just across over there, and Tomasław Mazowiecki in summer of 1957. And it was used purely for military purposes and training purposes. So this is a very interesting area. Once again, Pilica River, one of the major tributaries, and the major tributary from the west to the Vistula River. Most of them coming from the east, rivers like the Narew and others, the Bug. Okay, so I guess the thing now is to take a few pictures of the place, and we'll be back after the bumper. I have found a very interesting little building. This is a recreation of a toilet. That's right, a WC, a water closet, you name it, a place to do your ablutions and also answer the call of nature. It's from the Tsarist times. It's a small building, obviously, not needing to be very big. But you'll see in here a number of artifacts. There's the old phonograph, and you see some musical instruments. There's a harmonica with its, accordion with its box, and there are some balalakas, I believe they are. And if I'm correct in my memory, correct me if I'm wrong, And we see on the pictures of Alexandra here and Tsar Nicholas here, just to really give you the period flavor, because of course they were in charge, and Poland was part of Poland was under Russian domination at that time. And of course, in the Russian Revolution, they ended and that ended. So we can move right along from this interesting little building, which was at Spalwa, where we're going later. It's on the Pilica River. And we've got this building. And this fellow in this uniform standing here is a guard, because this was a guardhouse at Spalwa next to the president's house during the interwar period. This was a period when Spalwa, because the L is a W in this case. That's an L with a slash through it, a particularly Polish letter. And this was a guardhouse during that interwar period. And we can see here, look at this fellow, it's a very interesting uniform on. And we see a picture, I believe that's a picture of the president in the early 1930s. There's, of course, a caricature of Piłsudski, Marshal Piłsudski, an old typewriter, an abacus, because that was the calculator of the time. And when I first was traveling to Central and Eastern Europe, you would see abacuses everywhere, in the shops even. People used them instead of cash registers. That was even in the 90s. So in Ukraine, I saw them even in the 2000s. Yeah, that's right. I don't know if they still have them there. But anyway, those are two nice buildings, just to give you a flavor of what Spalwa is going to be like. And then we walk along here, we see the mill. And what's interesting about this mill is, as I was saying previously, that this was the way you used the power of the river to make food, to grind corn and grain, to use it for making bread, or flour, rather, to make flour. So, and over here we have, just follow me down here, if you would, if you'd bear with me. Here we have a collection of actual millstones. And I'm told, if you're an expert in water millstones, this is the place for you, because apparently this is the biggest collection of such stones in Poland. It seems funny, I mean, to even talk about this now, because of course who uses a water mill anymore? But once upon a time, this would have been absolutely essential to being civilized, to the making of flour, and to sustenance, to surviving, to eating, you know? So the river, as this shows us, and that's why this is here, to show that the river was absolutely an essential part, not only of travel, communication, small boats, but also of making food. These are all stones from water mills that no longer exist. They're rescued from the ruins of water mills. And here's the water mill itself. I've already been inside, of course, and it really is an amazing place. And perhaps we'll get a few more shots of that. We're here, maybe take you inside for a bit. We're here at the Pilica River Museum in beautiful Tomasław Mazowiecki, and next to the Blue Springs, which we'll also see a bit later. We're traveling on the Pilica River. This is Poland Daily Travel. We'll be back with more from this area.